Should you buy the iPhone 12 in 2024? This phone comes in at around 220 something bucks depending on where you look, maybe a little bit over $3 depending on the storage capacity, but the iPhone 12 is a pretty low price point. At this point, under 300. If you find a bad condition one, it'll probably be in the $150 to $225 range. Some of the key specs that matter here: a 6.1 inch OLED display, dual 12 megapixel cameras up top, 4 gigabytes of RAM, Apple A15 Bionic, and a 2815 milliamp hour battery stuffed inside of this phone. Not the largest. It's one of the more disappointing aspects of this phone. And when looking at the design, all you have to do is take a quick peek at the iPhone 15 to see that these are essentially the same kind of design. Although the 15 is more polished, refined, it's still a pretty recycled design if you ask me. Power button comes down a little bit, antenna line a little bit bigger. You'll see USB-C from Lightning, but anybody who has an iPhone 12 is not going to get a drastic change if they go to the iPhone 15. They will get some refinements, polish, and speed enhancements, and maybe a smoother back. But overall, you know, the 12 for that money is still a really nice option of a phone, both 5G. While not super up to date, kind of old looking at this point, the notch definitely looks quite old at this point. Is still not that different in terms of experience, which is saying more about Apple's not changing their phone designs that much more than it being an older phone. So this phone is also quite durable, and IP68 dust and water resistance is also on board, so the device actually is quite durable even though it came out in 2020. And it also has a durable back and front display here as well, with Corning Gorilla Glass on both, although there wasn't mentioned which one exactly it was. In addition, this phone, being an older iPhone, still has a SIM card tray, which a lot of people do like. So if you're looking for a backup option, I think this is a pretty sweet deal right now, if I'm being totally honest with you. When it comes to the display, it is HDR10 capable, Super Retina XDR OLED, so Apple really has been keeping the display the same, or maybe it's just the display matured. They don't need to really do much to it. But it has True Tone, Dark Mode, all that stuff you're used to. It doesn't hit the nicest brightness outdoors, though. You are going to peak a little bit with this one to see it outdoors. But in certain areas, it can hit 1200 nits peak. But see, the newer iPhones can hit like 2000 nits. So they're like 3 times as bright, the newer iPhone 15. So this is a major upgrade to the newer phone, but only in the sense of brightness. When it comes to the actual accuracy, the balance, the color, the sharpness, it's all pretty similar. And still 60 hertz even on the iPhone 12. That's not really a bad thing for this model. It still was very smooth, and to this day it still operates. I missed a tap. It operates very smooth on a day-to-day basis. So an iPhone 12 was a good investment back then in terms of the display, and it still operates very good today. And you'll see the OLED display still giving them nice contrast ratios. You'll see that the notch definitely peeks into some of the content here on the panel, and the bezels are not quite as thin as the newer phone, but it's really not a big issue overall. I really like the lightness of holding this, and this notch is not quite as deep as the one on the 13, so that could be a little bit more or less distracting for you. And some people prefer the notch over the, the dynamic island, so that's also something to keep in mind. But I gotta say, the display, I look at this and I'm like, I had the same experience 3 to 4 years ago. That's what I think about when I see these new iPhones and then look at my iPhone 12. Now, when it comes to the software here, it's still got the app library. It still has widget support. It still has the same grid of icons and the ability to add more, change the pages around. You know the drill with iOS at this point. They got a ton of options here these days, but it's still pretty simple. It's not overly complex. It's not super fun to customize, honestly. It's a little bit more complicated, I would say, to customize this deeper than Android. Is very easy. Just download a launcher and it changes the whole look of the phone. But software is still pretty good. It's still being updated. And while you only have a couple more years left of updates, if you buy one now as a backup to play around with iOS, it's still a solid option, I would say. When it comes to performance, though, it actually performs nearly identical to a brand new iPhone 15. I think I did a speed test already with this, and it was only behind when we started benchmarking, when we did things a little bit more complex, like a higher quality game or something like that. But other than that, it can still launch most of your applications in a very quick fashion. Photos are not slow, nothing like that. And while it does have only 4 gigs of RAM, that's not going to hold as many applications in the background. It still does a good job because iOS is very efficient in here. All I think about with this is back in the day when you used to get a used iPhone, they were really slow. Nowadays, you get an older iPhone and you're still getting a great iPhone. But what about the cameras now? They're just a simple iPhone camera. That's what they are. They're dual 12 megapixels. What else do we need to talk about? They do ultra wide. They don't do anything further than 5 times zoom. But at this money, I mean, what it costs now, I really don't expect more. 4K 60 can still give you video that would rival some, basic point and shoot cameras, even on this older iPhone. So definitely very easy to use, no focusing issues. It's a very simple iPhone setup. Over here on the front, you have 4K 60, you have photo modes, portrait modes. This is almost like those iPhones that used to have single cameras. It's just super easy to use. There's really nothing to it that's too complex, no pro modes. Yeah, you have an ultra wide, but big deal. This is one of the easiest iPhone cameras out there, and it still produces acceptable results. I would say better than acceptable, but nothing crazy, nothing like, oh, you're going to be blown away. You're just kind of used to these kind of results already. And that's what the 12 offers you now. If there's any area I would say skip this one totally, it's the battery health, or not the health, the actual battery life experience. It's not good on the iPhone 12. This is a charge at 7 p.m., 6 p.m., in the middle of the day type of phone if you're a heavier user. For people who just throw it in their pocket and never touch it, of course it's going to last. But the iPhone 12 was never a great battery iPhone. The newer ones, while they look exactly the same, they are far better in efficiency and battery. So if you're looking for a top level battery, you're going to have to turn on low power mode for the iPhone 12. This one just cannot go the distance, especially on 5G. And when I mean the distance, I mean you're a heavy user using it all day, that type of stuff. Other than that, for a casual user, it'll be fine. But I'm talking about for somebody who's buying a phone to use it. If you're not buying it to use it a lot and just for casual use, given that somebody don't use phones that much, it'll be plenty enough for most people in that respect, if you're just very casual light users. But anything beyond that, I don't really recommend this for battery. I will go to the 13 easily. While this isn't the best area either, the reception strength got better on the 13, 14, and the 15 is pretty similar. It was way better than the 11. So if we're thinking about the 11, spend a little more for better reception on the iPhone 12. Also, 5G makes this definitely more up to date with the current times than iPhone 11. This came in black, white, red, green, blue, and purple, got launched later. Still has the same Face ID, and while the Bluetooth standards aren't the latest, it still has 5.0, which is fast enough. It still has Wi-Fi 6, not 7, but still fast enough. And Lightning 2.0, which was still on things like the iPhone 14 Pro and Pro Max. So overall, the iPhone 12 right now in 2024, do I recommend it? For a certain select few people, somebody looking for a really low priced iPhone that doesn't want something like an SE, this is definitely a nice option. Or you just want to play around with iOS as a backup option. You don't really use iOS that much. You want to try it out, but you don't want to spend a big buck. This is a decent option. But for anyone else, I would definitely recommend at least minimum 13. And if you're looking for a really decent deal, the iPhone 14 is coming down as well. So that's a great option as well. So that's my take on the 12 in 2024. What do you guys think? Do you have one? Do you plan on getting one or not? Comment that down below. Thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already. Nick here. Be sure to be well and peace.